Here we are again in Leith. This one is going to be a tour of the cabins. I'm going to look at all the different cabins, starting with the captain's cabin. We're going to have a look at the officer's cabin, the engineer's cabins, and finally the deck crew cabins. Doing a walk along the quayside again, because why not? Explorers in Leith. She's been here since the late 90s. If you're local to the area, you can book a tour of Explorer, and I'll leave a link for that in the description, with a link to the Facebook page as well. I'm not going to film my entire route around the ship because there'll be lots of walking to different areas of the ship. So I'll pause when we get on the gangway, and I'll start filming once we're back into the captain's cabin. So, captain's cabin, there it is. So this cabin is right behind the bridge. That's the British through there. That's having a lot of work done at the moment. We'll step inside. So the captain's bed, right here. The captain got the nicest cabin aboard, right up behind the bridge, and absolutely the biggest cabin aboard. One of the only cabins with windows as well. The desk was restored by one of our volunteers using techniques from the day, so there's no nails and screws and things like that. It was rebuilt as it would have been built in the 50s. The captain on Explorer also had the key for the bonded locker, so we'll open the bonded locker up. And those that work at sea know what the bonded locker is. It's similar to the duty free at an airport. Once you're out at sea, you can buy your rum and your booze and your cigarettes without the tax. Captain was the man to have the key for the bonded locker, so we'll close that. Captain was also the only man to have his own toilet aboard. He had to share a shower with the rest of the crew, but he got his own toilet. This cabin had a lot of work done recently. These panels were all rotten and had fallen down because of a leak on the Monkey Island. The leak's been repaired. The deck head has been repaired. The bed used to fill up with water as well. That's been repaired. So next we'll go downstairs and we'll look into the officers' cabins. We've come down 2 decks. We've gone from the bridge deck to the main deck, now to the accommodation deck. All the officers would have slept down here. We'll go into this cabin. This would have been for the chief mate. This cabin's recently been wired for AC power. But there's a lot of work that needs to happen in this cabin, but it's still a very big cabin. The officers and the scientists aboard, they would normally bunk on their own. There was the option for a day bed and for another person to sleep in here if need be. Explorer had a crew of around 36 to 38 people. On a modern ship, the cabins are half the size of this. Every single cabin has a sink. The mate's cabin, he's got the cupboard. He's got the vanity cover. There we go, and the sink. There's still work to be done in here. There's minimal water ingress from above in this cabin, but there has been in the past, so the carpet will get replaced. This will be repaired. Everything will get painted and cleaned. We'll go into some of the other officers' cabins, so I will pause once again. So this cabin, right next door to the mate's cabin, was the chief engineer's cabin. Another big cabin. No light in this cabin yet. That's next to be wired. This is next to be wired for power. No light in here at the moment. Again, the engineer would have slept on his own in here, but the ability to bunk up with another person existed. Another sink in here. And an electric fireplace, or an electric heater, circa probably 1960s. That looks a bit, I wouldn't like to try and use that now. With the old style plug that would have gone to the old style socket there. Hot water radiators as well, and then I don't know where that came from, but that's just been left there. And another sink. I think I've already set the sink. There you go, the sink's twice. The engineer also had a big girder right through the middle, because above him is the trawl winch. We'll go to, where can we go next? Let's go to the chief scientist. In fact, the chief scientist is directly opposite, so we may as well just do this. Chief scientist, straight through into the chief scientist. The chief scientist for a very long time aboard Explorer was a man by the name of John Dunn. John Dunn is a font of knowledge and is a wonderful guy to speak to. He has information about Explorer and the work that she did that's nobody else has got. So John Dunn is a great guy to speak to. This would have been his cabin while he was aboard. Same old story. A bunk with a daybed. I don't know how often people would have slept on the daybed. I don't know, but there was a daybed, and again another sink. Deck light. So we are down in the hull of the ship now. That's the trawl deck above us, but all the cabins down here had a skylight. Scientific officer. Oh, well, this cabin got divided into two cabins at one point. So the sink is out here in the foyer. In here, there's a bunk and a daybed there. And then through here, there's another couple of bunks. The skylight is there. I'll come back out this way. And because this cabin was divided up later, there's no skylight in this one. We'll head back out of this one. So we're heading further forward. We're on that same corridor. We'll head starboard and into a little foyer here. And we have the second engineer. This is his cabin. The cabins are starting to get smaller. This one doesn't have a skylight in it either, but it's still got the sink. It's still got the daybed. It's still got the bunk, and it's still got the desk. There probably would have been I don't know what would have been there. Maybe a cabinet of some sort. Quite a small cabin. There's the hot water radiator and ventilation that all the cabins have got. So when this cabin gets wired for power, there'll be a good amount of cleaning taking place in here. Third engineer. What's the second engineer above the door? It does say second engineer, but it says third engineer there. Second engineer again. So this is directly opposite. Somebody parked a load of model boats in this cabin, and there's half dead Fred sleeping there. So there's a cabinet. That's probably what was on the bulkhead in the other compartment. And again, a daybed. There is a deck light here. This compartment's in poor condition because of water ingress from above. There's the bucket catching the rain. So a lot of work's needed in this cabin. But, still a decent sized cabin. Let's have a look into some of the other cabins. Head back out into the corridor. And this would be one of the scientists' cabin. So this has been used, this is part of the tour route. We come in here and we talk about some of those ships. We talk about Explorer. Let's turn my head torch off because it's quite bright in here. There we go. We talk about Explorer when we bring people in here on the tour, and Scotia and a couple of other ships. We were National Historic Ships flagship in 2020. So that's displayed here as well. And a model that somebody built, 2002, the label says. That's in there. So where we're going to go next, so this is the officers and scientists cabin. They're all decent sized cabins. That's it for cabins in this part of the ship. We'll head forward through a watertight section and past some workshop space. Where we're going to enter next is crew cabins. So the deck crew would have slept in these cabins, and you'll see very quickly the difference between the officers cabins and the crew cabins. Cabin number one. We're getting right towards the bow of the ship now. This is where the deck crew would have slept. Tiny little cabin, 2 beds. So the cabins are half the size and twice as many beds. But they've still got the deck light, so they've still got the skylight allowing daylight into here. Right at the bow of the ship, so this cabin would have been very uncomfortable and very noisy. It would have been in weather, it would have been quite an uncomfortable cabin to sleep in. The cabins in this part of the ship all sort of follow the same general layout. There's another one through here, same sort of size, skylight there, couple of bunks. That's it for this cabin as well, same sort of thing. We'll go forward, we'll go in here. This was a recreation room. The story goes that this wasn't used as often as a recreation room as was intended. This room used to go all the way across. When, in one of Explorer's early refits, a walkway was added further back, and it involved the removal of the cabin that was there. So that cabin that was removed from the walkway was put into here. So this is technically the newest cabin aboard, right at the bow of the ship. And this cabin would have been grim if you were sleeping in here and the captain decided he wanted the anchor dropping. Tons of chain would rattle up through that pipe there. So if you were sleeping and that happened, you weren't sleeping anymore. Same sort of layout though. A couple of bunks and magazine racks, medicine cabinets, a couple of wardrobes. So this is right at the bow of the ship. We'll head now into the steward's cabins and the bosun's cabin right at the other end of the ship. So I will pause as I walk along to those cabins. I'll be right back. So we're at the very aft end of the ship now, almost at the aft end of the ship. Down here into the dark hole, this would have been stewards, cooks, the bosun's cabin is down here as well. So we'll head down this ladder. There's a magic light that'll turn on when we get down there, but that's the reason I've got the head torch, because it's quite dark. So I'll pause as I climb down. I'll get you at the bottom. Bottom of the ladder, as the magic light turns itself on. We'll head aft. I'll do all this in one shot because they're all the cabins are close together. So bosun's cabin. There we go, the bosun's cabin. The cabins here are in okay conditions. There is evidence of water ingress like that. All the water ingress is from above. Same sort of thing, wardrobe, day bed if necessary, a bed there. This cabin's quite interesting because while she was in service, people would have climbed through here and signed there, graffitied it. I wonder how many of those people are still around. We found that recently while we were doing work down here. It's quite an interesting thing. We'll head across to the steward's cabin. So this would have been the steward's cabin, or one of the stewards, maybe the chief steward. He would have been in here, and it's the same sort of story, unfortunately. Down here, it's not in great condition. There's a lot of work needed to be taking place. This area of the ship has been neglected somewhat, so a lot of work needs to take place in here. We will go out here. Catering staff. So I think this was a double bunk, so 2 people would sleep in here. Yeah, there's a bunk bed in here. This one's quite a big cabin. This one's in decent condition. There's the bunk bed, 2 wardrobes, little writing desk there, hot water radiator again, and then the ventilation, the cold air ventilation, and of course the daylight, the skylight. These, when the ship was in service, these rooms would have been decorated and furnished with things that the sailors and the seamen, things that were important to them. So these would have been this would have been their home away from home. So these rooms would have been quite personal when people were aboard. At the moment, that's not the case, unfortunately. Right, we'll go forward. Technician's cabin. Similar sort of story. She's looking quite tired in this part of the ship. Double bunk. We're back at the bottom of that ladder. Oops, that's a door. We'll head here. Technician's cabin again. Beyond that bulkhead is the engine room, so you could probably hear the generator if I shut up for a second. That's the current generator that's running. Same sort of thing. Cabins are pretty standard, but again, they would have been furnished and decorated however the sailors and however the crew wanted them. And the last cabin down here is the petty officer's cabin. He doesn't sleep with the rest of the officers, he sleeps down here. And this cabin's quite a sizable cabin. 2 bunks though again. There's a few things down here. People have been working down here. But that's this again. But again, a deck light, a skylight. That's it for this part. There are a couple more cabins that we can go to. The fishing skipper cabin. So what I'll do is I'll pause. I'll make my way to the fishing skipper's cabin, and I'll get you when we get back round there. So we're right at the stern end of the ship now. In fact, down that hatch there is the steering gear room. Starboard side is one of the fishing skipper's cabins. These cabins were meant to be the best cabins aboard, right at the back of the ship, away from all the slamming and all the noise of the sea. Maybe a bit of vibrations because you're above the prop here. And these cabins are furnished beautifully, following the curvature of the hull. It wouldn't have been a joiner or a carpenter that did this, it would have been a cabinet maker. Quite an impressive cabin, these are quite impressive. Someone's put a model of, that model is actually in the museum in Aberdeen, so if you're ever up there, take a look. Intercom, all the important areas of the ship got the intercom, and then again the sink. So we'll go over to the port side cabin. This is a mirror of the starboard side cabin. I won't go into too much because one of the volunteers keeps a lot of his gear in here, but this is the port side cabin. That's a mirror of the cabin over on starboard. So that's it for cabins aboard Explorer. She would have had a crew of about 36. They were dotted about all over the place. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you want to come and see Explorer, there will be a link in the description to book a tour. We do take tours. Tours are free, but we always welcome donations. I'll leave a link for donations as well in the description for those that are inclined to do so. I'm probably going to film more about Explorer because she seems to be quite popular. We'll finish up in the galley. So keep an eye out for things coming in the future, I suppose. There's no schedule. It'll be when I get time to film, I'll film. But if you've enjoyed the video, brilliant. I'm glad you've watched it. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. Keep an eye out for future videos coming out about Explorer. I'll try and film some of the work that's being done aboard as well. Or even at the very least some before and after photos. So for now, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.